The medieval period in Europe, spanning from roughly the 5th to the late 15th century, was characterized by a complex social structure, evolving daily life, and significant cultural and intellectual achievements. Understanding medieval society requires an exploration of the social hierarchy, the nuances of daily life in various settings, the foundations of agriculture and economy, and the cultural contributions in art, architecture, and literature. Education and knowledge transmission also played crucial roles in shaping medieval life. Social hierarchy and roles. Medieval society was structured in a rigid hierarchical system, often referred to as feudalism, where each class had distinct roles and responsibilities. Nobles. At the top of the social hierarchy were the nobles, who held vast lands granted by the king in exchange for military service and loyalty. Nobles were responsible for managing their estates, administering justice, and providing protection for the peasants living on their lands. They lived in large manors or castles, surrounded by luxury and retaining numerous servants and knights to enforce their authority. Knights. Beneath the nobles were the knights, warriors bound by the code of chivalry. Knights were often vassals to more powerful lords and received land in return for their service. Their primary duty was to protect the realm and their lord's interests. Training for knighthood began at a young age, with boys serving as pages and squires before being dubbed knights in a ceremonial process. Chivalry emphasized virtues such as bravery, honor, and respect for women, although the reality often diverged from these ideals. Peasants. Peasants, or serfs, constituted the majority of the population. They worked the land and provided the economic backbone of medieval society. Peasants were bound to the land they worked on and owed various dues and services to their lord. Their lives were harsh, characterized by long hours of labor, poor living conditions, and limited freedom. Despite their hardships, peasants played a crucial role in sustaining the medieval economy and society. Clergy. The clergy formed a distinct class with its own hierarchy, ranging from humble parish priests to powerful bishops and abbots. The church was a dominant force in medieval life, influencing nearly every aspect of daily life. Monasteries and convents were centers of education, agriculture, and charity. The clergy were responsible for the spiritual well-being of the populace, conducting religious services, and providing guidance and support. They also played a significant role in preserving knowledge and fostering learning. Daily life in medieval villages, towns, and cities. The daily life of medieval people varied greatly depending on whether they lived in rural villages, bustling towns, or growing cities. Villages. In medieval villages, life was centered around agriculture. Peasants worked the fields from dawn to dusk, following the agricultural calendar with its cycles of planting, tending, and harvesting crops. Villages were small and self-sufficient, with communal practices such as shared grazing lands and collective farming efforts. Homes were modest, often built from wood and thatch, and typically consisted of a single room shared by the entire family. The village church was a focal point for community life, hosting religious ceremonies, festivals, and social gatherings. Towns. Medieval towns were hubs of trade and craft. Townspeople, known as burghers, engaged in various trades such as blacksmithing, weaving, and baking. Towns were usually fortified with walls and gates, offering protection and a sense of communal identity. Markets were central to town life, where goods from the surrounding countryside and distant regions were bought and sold. Guilds played a crucial role in regulating trade, maintaining standards, and protecting the interests of their members. Towns also had a more diverse social structure, with wealthy merchants, skilled artisans, and laborers coexisting. Cities. Cities, though fewer and far between, were the largest and most complex urban centers. They served as seats of government, religious authority, and economic power. Cities like Paris, London, and Florence were bustling with activity, featuring grand cathedrals, palaces, and universities. The urban population was diverse, including nobles, merchants, craftsmen, students, and clergy. Daily life in cities was dynamic, with a mix of cultural, economic, and intellectual pursuits. The presence of universities and scholastic institutions in cities also fostered the growth of learning and the exchange of ideas. Medieval agriculture and economy. Agriculture was the foundation of the medieval economy, with innovations and practices that sustained the population. The manorial system, where large estates were managed by lords and worked by peasants, was central to agricultural production. Innovations such as the three-field system, which rotated crops to maintain soil fertility, significantly increased yields. This method involved planting one field with winter crops, another with spring crops, and leaving the third fallow. The introduction of heavy plows, watermills, and windmills also improved efficiency and productivity. These advancements supported population growth and urbanization by ensuring a stable food supply. Additionally, the growth of local markets and fairs facilitated the exchange of goods, while long-distance trade routes connected Europe with Asia and Africa, enriching the economy. The rise of a merchant class and the development of banking practices laid the groundwork for the future market economy, transitioning medieval Europe from a purely agrarian society to one with diverse economic activities. Economy. The medieval economy was primarily agrarian, but trade and commerce began to flourish, especially during the High Middle Ages. Local markets and fairs facilitated the exchange of goods, and long-distance trade routes connected Europe with Asia and Africa. The growth of towns and cities spurred economic activity, leading to the rise of a merchant class. Coinage became more standardized, and banking practices began to emerge, laying the groundwork for the future development of a market economy. Art, architecture, and literature. Medieval Europe witnessed remarkable achievements in art, architecture, and literature, reflecting the cultural and religious values of the time. These cultural expressions were deeply intertwined with the society's spiritual beliefs, socio-political structures, and intellectual pursuits, leaving an indelible mark on European history. Romanesque architecture. Romanesque architecture, roughly 10th to early 12th century, is characterized by solid, massive structures with rounded arches, thick walls, and sturdy pillars. The style emerged as a means to express the growing stability and religious fervor of the time, coinciding with the consolidation of territories under feudal lords and the expansion of monasticism. Structural features and innovations. Romanesque buildings typically featured semicircular arches and robust construction. The use of barrel vaults and groin vaults allowed for the creation of large, open interior spaces. These vaults distributed the weight of the roof more effectively, reducing the need for internal supports and creating expansive, uninterrupted naves. Key examples. Basilica of Saint Sernin in Toulouse, one of the largest remaining Romanesque buildings in Europe. It is noted for its cruciform layout, massive bell tower, and extensive use of radiating chapels. Durham Cathedral in England, famous for its ribbed vaulting and its position on a hill overlooking the River Wear, it represents a transition between Romanesque and Gothic styles. Art and decoration. Romanesque art included frescoes, illuminated manuscripts, and carvings, often depicting biblical scenes and saints. The artwork served both a decorative and didactic function, educating an largely illiterate populace about Christian teachings and biblical narratives. Illuminated manuscripts, these were hand-copied texts adorned with intricate illustrations and gold leaf. The Book of Kells, an illuminated manuscript of the Gospels, exemplifies the artistry of the period. Frescoes and murals, adorning church walls and ceilings, these paintings provided visual storytelling and conveyed religious themes. Sculptural works. Sculptural decorations were integral to Romanesque architecture, with intricate carvings adorning portals, capitals, and facades. The sculptures were often symbolic, representing scenes from the Bible, the lives of saints, and fantastical creatures. The Last Judgment tympanum at Autun Cathedral, carved by Giselbertus, it is a dramatic depiction of the final judgment, showcasing the detailed and expressive nature of Romanesque sculpture. Gothic architecture. Gothic architecture, 12th to 16th century, followed the Romanesque and is known for its height, light, and intricate details. This style represented an evolution in architectural design, driven by advances in engineering and a desire to create spaces that inspired awe and reverence. Structural features and innovations. Key features of Gothic architecture include pointed arches, ribbed vaults, and flying buttresses. These innovations allowed for taller buildings and larger windows, transforming the interiors of churches into light-filled, ethereal spaces. Pointed arches, these distributed weight more efficiently than rounded arches, allowing for higher ceilings and more slender supports. Ribbed vaults, these provided greater structural stability and flexibility in roof design. Flying buttresses, external supports that transferred the weight of the roof and walls outward, permitting the construction of large windows. Key examples. Notre Dame de Paris, an iconic example of French Gothic architecture, known for its impressive size, detailed facade, and stunning rose windows. Chartres Cathedral, famous for its architectural harmony, extensive stained glass, and the labyrinth on its floor, symbolizing a spiritual journey. Art and decoration. Gothic art evolved with elaborate sculptures, detailed stained glass, and illuminated manuscripts that enhance the beauty and spiritual ambience of religious structures. Stained glass windows, these became a defining feature of Gothic cathedrals. The vibrant colors and intricate designs told biblical stories and illuminated the interior with divine light. The rose windows of Chartres and Notre Dame are exemplary. Sculptures, Gothic sculpture was more naturalistic and expressive compared to Romanesque. Facades and portals were adorned with statues of saints, angels, and biblical figures, as seen in the intricate statuary of the Reims Cathedral. Illuminated manuscripts. The production of illuminated manuscripts continued to flourish during the Gothic period, with an increased focus on realism and detail. Books of hours, private devotional books, became popular among the laity. Tres Riches du Duc de Berry. This is one of the most famous illuminated manuscripts from the Gothic period, containing detailed miniatures depicting the months of the year and scenes of medieval life. Literature. Medieval literature was diverse, with genres including epic poetry, romances, religious texts, and chronicles. The flourishing of vernacular languages alongside Latin allowed a broader segment of the population to engage with literature. Epic poetry and heroic tales. Epic poetry often celebrated the chivalric ideals and heroic deeds of knights. These stories were not only entertainment but also served to promote the values of bravery, loyalty, and honor. Chanson de Roland, an epic poem celebrating the heroism of Roland, a knight in Charlemagne's army. It is a quintessential example of the chanson de geste, song of heroic deeds, tradition. Beowulf, though primarily an Old English work, its themes of heroism and the supernatural resonate with the broader medieval literary tradition. Romances and courtly love. Romances were narrative poems or prose tales that explored themes of chivalry, adventure, and courtly love. These stories often featured quests, battles, and the trials of noble lovers. The Arthurian legends, the stories of King Arthur and his Knights of the Round Table, particularly those written by Chrétien de Troyes, were foundational to the Romance genre. Tristan and Isolde, a tragic romance that explores themes of love, honor, and betrayal, it has been retold in various forms throughout the medieval period and beyond. Religious texts and mystical writings. Religious literature was a dominant genre, encompassing theological treatises, hagiographies, lives of saints, and mystical writings. These texts were often didactic, aimed at instructing the faithful and promoting piety. The Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri. This monumental work explores themes of sin, redemption, and divine justice through the journey of the protagonist, Dante, through hell, purgatory, and paradise. The Imitation of Christ by Thomas à Kempis, a highly influential devotional book that emphasized the interior life and personal relationship with God. Chronicles and historical writings. Medieval chronicles were essential sources of historical knowledge, recording events, genealogies, and significant occurrences. Chroniclers often intertwined factual reporting with moral and theological reflections. The Anglo-Saxon Chronicle, a collection of annals documenting the history of the Anglo-Saxons, it provides valuable insights into early medieval England. Geoffrey of Monmouth's Historia Regum Britanniae, a pseudo-historical work that contributed to the legends of King Arthur and the ancient history of Britain. Vernacular literature. The use of vernacular languages in literature marked a significant shift from the exclusive use of Latin, making literature more accessible to a wider audience. The Canterbury Tales by Geoffrey Chaucer, a collection of stories told by pilgrims on their way to Canterbury, it offers a vivid portrayal of medieval society and its various classes and occupations. El Cantar de Mio Cid, a Spanish epic poem celebrating the exploits of the Castilian nobleman Rodrigo Diaz de Vivar, known as El Cid. Education and knowledge transmission. Education and the transmission of knowledge underwent significant changes during the medieval period, influenced by the church and emerging institutions. Monastic and cathedral schools. Initially, education was primarily the domain of the church, with monastic and cathedral schools serving as centers of learning. These institutions were critical in preserving classical texts and producing illuminated manuscripts. Monasteries, with their scriptoria, played a pivotal role in copying and illuminating important religious and classical works, ensuring their survival through the centuries. Monastic schools provided education primarily to monks, focusing on religious instruction, Latin literacy, and the study of the Bible and other theological texts. Cathedral schools, associated with major churches and cathedrals, offered more formalized education and were often open to the sons of nobility and the wealthy. These schools laid the foundation for the development of medieval universities, contributing to the intellectual revival of the period and fostering a culture of scholarship and learning within the ecclesiastical and secular communities. Monastic schools. Monasteries were self-sufficient communities dedicated to religious life and scholarship. Monastic schools provided education primarily to monks, focusing on religious instruction, Latin literacy, and classical learning. Scriptoria. Monastic scriptoria were dedicated rooms where manuscripts were copied and illuminated. The meticulous work of monks in scriptoria ensured the preservation of essential texts from antiquity. Rule of Saint Benedict. This rule guided monastic life, emphasizing a balance of prayer, work, and study. Monks followed a strict schedule that included periods dedicated to learning and copying texts. Cathedral schools. Cathedral schools emerged as important educational centers in urban areas, providing training for clergy and a select few lay students. These schools were often associated with the bishop's cathedral and focused on a curriculum that included grammar, rhetoric, logic, and theology. Paris Cathedral School, known for its rigorous intellectual environment, it laid the groundwork for the University of Paris. Schools of Chartres and Laon. These schools were renowned for their contributions to the development of scholasticism and their emphasis on the liberal arts. Rise of universities. The High Middle Ages saw the rise of universities, which became key centers of learning and intellectual activity. These institutions were autonomous corporations that offered a structured and secular education. Founding of universities. University of Bologna, founded in 1088, it is often considered the first university. It became a leading center for the study of law. University of Paris, known for its theological faculty, it became a model for other universities throughout Europe. The University of Paris was particularly influential in the development of scholasticism. University of Oxford, founded in the late 12th century, it quickly grew to prominence and remains one of the oldest and most prestigious universities in the world. Curriculum and structure. Medieval universities offered a curriculum that was divided into the trivium, grammar, rhetoric, and logic, and the quadrivium, arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy. The trivium focused on foundational linguistic and logical skills, while the quadrivium covered more advanced subjects. Faculties. Universities were typically organized into faculties, including arts, law, medicine, and theology. The Faculty of Arts provided the foundational education, after which students could specialize in one of the higher faculties. Degrees. The degrees awarded were the Bachelor of Arts, BA, Master of Arts, MA, and Doctorate. The MA and Doctorate allowed graduates to teach and hold scholarly positions. Scholastic method. The scholastic method was characterized by rigorous dialectical reasoning and the synthesis of classical philosophy with Christian theology. Prominent scholastics, such as Thomas Aquinas and Albertus Magnus, played crucial roles in this intellectual tradition. Summa Theologica by Thomas Aquinas. This comprehensive work sought to reconcile Aristotelian philosophy with Christian doctrine and became a foundational text in Catholic theology. Commentaries on Aristotle. Scholastics produced extensive commentaries on the works of Aristotle, integrating his ideas into the medieval intellectual framework. Transmission of knowledge. The transmission of knowledge during the medieval period was facilitated by the translation of classical and Islamic texts into Latin, as well as the invention of the printing press. Translation movement. The 12th century Renaissance saw a significant translation movement, with scholars translating works from Greek, Arabic, and Hebrew into Latin. These translations brought a wealth of knowledge from the ancient and Islamic worlds to medieval Europe. Toledo School of Translators, a renowned center for translation in Spain, where scholars translated important works in science, philosophy, and medicine. Gerard of Cremona, one of the most prolific translators, he translated over 70 works from Arabic to Latin, including Ptolemy's Almagest and Avicenna's Canon of Medicine. Invention of the printing press. The invention of the printing press by Johannes Gutenberg in the mid-15th century revolutionized the dissemination of knowledge. This technological advancement made books more accessible and affordable, leading to an increase in literacy and the spread of new ideas. Gutenberg Bible, the first major book printed using movable type, it marked the beginning of the print revolution. Impact on education. The printing press facilitated the production of textbooks, enabling more widespread and efficient education. It also allowed for the rapid spread of Renaissance humanism and Reformation ideas. The medieval period in Europe was a time of profound social, economic, and cultural transformation. The social hierarchy defined roles and responsibilities, shaping the daily lives of individuals in villages, towns, and cities. Advances in agriculture and the economy supported population growth and urbanization. Art, architecture, and literature flourished, reflecting the values and beliefs of the time. Education and knowledge transmission evolved, laying the foundations for the intellectual advancements of the Renaissance. Understanding these aspects provides a comprehensive view of medieval society and its enduring legacy.